Hello and welcome to the Student Experience Podcast. Joining me today is Professor Scott Bowman. Now, Professor Bowman began his professional life as a radiographer and he worked in several London hospitals before he started his teaching and lecturing career. Before moving to Australia, he worked at South Bank University and St Martin's College, Lancaster. In Australia, he's held senior positions at Charles Sturt University, the University of South Australia and James Cook University. In 2019, he was appointed the Vice-Chancellor and President of CDU University in Australia. In this position, he led an ambitious program of renewal with the aim to make CDU University Australia's most engaged university. Professor Bowman's vision and leadership helped transform CQU into one of Australia's largest and most engaged regional universities. In 2019, he was appointed as an Officer of the Order of Australia for his significant contributions to higher education, training and regional Australia. Professor Bowman is passionate ambassador of regional universities and their role in education, industry, community and the workforces for the future. Earlier this year, he took up the reins at Charles Darwin University with plans to grow the university and create a values-led experience for students, staff and community. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Tanya. Have we got any time left now after that introduction?
I just want to make sure we've got everything covered.
Yeah. Well, there's a bird in the background. Obviously enjoyed it a lot because it's making a lot of noise.
Well, and I guess, we've come from having worked together at CDU University and then you retired and your plan was to travel the world. That was back in 2018. And obviously, in part to COVID, keeping you in country, you've now returned to higher education. And I know that that's because making a difference is so important to you. Can you share with us what the difference is that you seek to make and why it is so important?
Yeah, look, I think you're right, Tanya. It is important. And it was a really interesting experience working for 10 years as a Vice-Chancellor and then really finishing with other plans in mind, which were very much self-centered, I guess. It was about getting in a truck and driving around the world. And obviously with COVID coming on, and that finished that plan to do that traveling. So that gave me an opportunity to sit where I am now in Cairns in far north Queensland and sit for about 18 months, really thinking about things. I was learning to knit and to learning to play the guitar, but also having a lot of time to think and just reflecting on how incredibly lucky we are in higher education to have jobs that really matter. You know, they have real meaning. So there's a lot of meaning in the work we do. And definitely sitting there knitting didn't feel a very meaningful life. And it then struck me that even getting the truck and driving around the world, that I don't think there would be enough meaning in that. And maybe it's when you are becoming self-centered, if you really think about it, that there's not a lot of meaning in that. The meaning comes from really working with other people and trying to, this sounds a bit, I don't know, namby-pamby, but trying to make the world a bit better place. And I think that's a real driving factor in our students. And I think I woke up very clearly to that it was a driving factor in me as well.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting, and I know students have always been a really important part of your journey. And from an outside perspective, it seems it could be easy to lose sight of students when you are busy running what is essentially a business. So why is it important for the executive level to really keep connected with students as individuals and the student experience? And how do you manage it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to that question. And but first and foremost, I agree with you. Particularly when you're sitting in, the Chancellery, when you're managing these big businesses, with some of them over $1 billion of turnover, it can be easy to lose focus on what you're really all about. And you do see that quite frequently in university strategic plans, university strategic plans that, hardly ever mention the word student. And it's quite interesting if you have a look at universities' policies and plans, and you do a word search on the word student. It's remarkable how few times that word comes up. So I agree, it's very easy to lose sight of that. Why do I think it's important? Well, I guess it does come back to that meaning of what we do. And if the meaning isn't with the student, then what is it with? Now, I think the meaning of our jobs does go outside of students. I think it goes to community, and I've always been very interested with community engagement and community connection, but also connection with the students. One of the biggest impacts that we can have on our communities and on society as general is through our students. So we often start thinking about engaging with our communities, and we start talking about our staff engaging. We talk about our facilities. We might talk about our money and, you know, being philanthropic with our own money. Again, we forget about the students. The biggest force for change and the area that we can really make the most difference is through our students. And by doing that, it's also something they want to do as well. Well, how do you keep in contact with these students? Well, you just get out and have a walk around and talk to them. You go to student events. Years and years ago, when I was a radiographer and I used to speak at radiography conferences, I found you could win the best conference presentation. There was an easy formula. All you did is you found a couple of patients that had been through medical examinations, particularly if things had gone wrong a little bit, and you just took them along to the conference. And the people in the audience would sit on the edge of their seats listening to these patients. And the reason they did that is because they never spoke to their patients. The stories they were hearing, they could hear every day in every hospital in Australia, but they never listened. And it's the same with students. You know, if you have a senior leaders conference or any kind of conference, get a student panel together and get the students talking. And that's the bit that people enjoy most, the student voice. Well, I got news for you. Just go for a walk around the campus. There's thousands of them. Just stop and have a yarn with them and ask them how they're going. So you can get that real student voice coming back all the time. It's not always going to be what you want to hear, but it's probably stuff you should be hearing.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the risks of only listening to a students in a formalized panel in a conference is it's very much tailored, and the people that you're speaking to are ones that have interactions with staff. Whereas if you're actually going out on campus and you're just talking to the first person that you come to, you get a very different perspective on what's going on.
Yeah, and a good place I've found to hang out is in the Student Central, because the Student Central, the students just go and sit and just listen in on some of the conversations, because in Student Central, that's where the students who have got problems, that have got complaints, who are not finding the university a great place, that's where they come in and tell their stories. Now, the people hearing those stories are often fantastic, incredible people, but often quite low down in the pecking order of the university. So it's really good to go and listen to that. Yeah, just get out and listen to students. And you're quite right, yeah, not just in those formal set pieces, but just in general.
And I know you've shared with me previously how you see that there are three key things that students are seeking from their tertiary education experience. So one of them is obviously quality education. Another one is a job at the end. And the other one that you've sort of touched on as well is that skills and experience to make the difference in the world that they want to make. So how do you see the third of these being facilitated, particularly in your current place at Charles Darwin Uni?
Yeah, look, so I think what I said to you is, look, I think students come to us for three reasons: quality education and a vocational outcome. And I think if you look at the Quilt data, every university in Australia is doing well at that. I mean, compare us to the rest of the world and we are really kicking ass. There may be in some cases 5% difference, maybe 10% difference between the top university and the lower one, but even the lower one's doing a really good job. So we're all doing well at those three, and we've been very focused on that. I think there's probably an over-reliance on the vocational outcomes, but that's another story. But so we all do well at that. But it's back to what we started talking about meaning. I think people need meaning in their life. And I think our students, and I used to say our young students, but I've reevaluated that. I think it's probably all students have this third need, not a want, a need, to actually have meaning in what they do and make the world a better place than they found it. And I think universities are in an incredible position to be able to give students the experiences and the set of skills they need to do that. Now, we're just starting on that journey, I think, at CDU. At CTU, I think we went a bit further along that line. So we really were doing a lot of things around social innovation. We were really getting our students out there to do projects to make a difference. We had our students, working in children's home in India. We had our students working with Engineers Without Borders. We were running clinics in Nepal, up in the Annapurna range. But also closer to home, we were working with homeless people in Sydney, a whole range of stuff. And in fact, giving students the opportunity to study for a certificate in social innovation alongside their main degree. And many of them took that up. So at the end of the day, they got their degree and a qualification in social innovation. So we gave them a toolkit that they could use to make a difference. And some of the experiences, I remember talking to a group of enrolled nurse students. So these weren't degree students, they were enrolled nurses, and we'd given them the opportunity to go to India, and they'd worked in, I think it's called the Acid Cafe, where there's women working in there that just dreadful. They've been disfigured and maimed with acid thrown in their face, often by their arranged husband for one reason and another. And those enrolled students had gone out and worked with that group and really got involved, and they came back, and every one of them said this was a life-changing event, and what they really wanted to do was to do more work with that, either in Australia or outside, and that had now become a focus for what they wanted to do. So I think there is this deep-seated need, and I think, that time at university, we can do a lot to try and help students with that.
So I guess I'm curious. I know you've worked in both regional and metro university environments to a certain degree.
Yeah,
I know I'm more regional, yes, but
yeah, I haven't worked that much. It was interesting. So, I think I didn't go to university. I wasn't sharp enough to get into university. I failed miserably at school, so I went to train and did a diploma in radiography, and then worked at Guy's Hospital teaching radiography, which then went to South Bank. So I was just a few months at South Bank, a little bit longer at Guy's Hospital. And then really after that, didn't work in an urban university for years and years. And then just last year, Barney Glover, the Vice Chancellor at Western, asked me to go down and help out down there, and I went down and sort of did we don't call them locums, do we? Interims. But I did a senior DVC and stood in a VC for a while, and so that was right in Sydney. So that was really, it's that 7 months of experience working in Sydney was really, in some ways, my only taste of a metro uni. And guess what? I found out that Western Sydney University is a regional university. But anyway, that's another story.
And it's all comparative, isn't it? Depends what perspective you're coming from as to whether it seems like regional or...
Yeah, probably. And Western Sydney is a very special university. And I I felt very at home there. So the kind of students that Western work with are very similar makeup to the students we work with in regions. And the university served a very well-defined regional part of Sydney. So, yeah, I felt very at home there.
Yeah, cool. Because I was interested if there was much of a difference, but...
No, not actually. In the university, it's not an awful lot of difference. Sydney was a bit different. Every time I said hello to anyone, because I used to walk to work along the river, the Parramatta River, and I'd say hello to someone, they used to react in shock as if I was about to mug them. You're walking, down the Esplanade in Darwin, and you say hello to anyone, and you're going to be stuck there for half an hour talking. So, yeah, that was a bit funny. But no, the university was very similar.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, that's all the questions that I have for you, Scott. Is there anything that you'd like to share about what you're doing at the moment? Anything you'd like to celebrate?
Oh, look, I think we're doing lots at the university, some really interesting things. We've got some projects around an Academy of the Arts and medical schools, but most universities are that. I'm really interested in leadership of all way, and we've worked together on leadership projects before, interestingly. So very interested in leadership, and I'm really trying to drive that in the university. And I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot in the past is, if you've got an aspiration for everyone to be a leader, then everyone has to be a follower. And I'm kind of still, here we are, probably 10 years ago, we had that first conversation about this. It still really intrigues me that, I've got bookcases all around me over there, and they're full of books on leadership. There's not one book anywhere there, and I don't think there's any books in the library about fellowship. If you're going to be a leader, or if you aspire that everyone's going to be a leader, then everyone has to be a follower. And, that's an interesting concept for vice chancellors and deputy vice chancellors and directors of education and principals in school. How do you, if you're really going to let people reach their full potential, you need to be a follower as much as a leader. And that whole concept is still very intriguing to me.
Yeah, and I've always loved that you've always had that approach, and it's not been about leadership as a senior position. Like, it's not positional leadership, it's more about behaviour and attitude and action is how you define someone.
Yeah, and the other thing that I've loved in my career is basking in reflected glory. I just find there's nothing worse, is there, when you meet someone and they're kind of boastful and they're saying, I did this and I did that and I led that. And the other word that I hate is my. My people did this. My EO, my EA, my, me. And it just grates on me when I hear those words. And if I do ever slip and say, I probably, when we were setting this meeting up, I didn't talk about Rebecca, my EA. I'd say, our EA in the office. Where would we talk? Yeah, so that, I think it's all about giving credit where it's due. And one person in a big university does nothing on their own. It's all other people, so give that. And then that's that fellowship. I learned a lot about fellowship at CDU from the security people there one Christmas. About this time of year, just about like with every other senior academic, and I was off on my bike. In fact, I was here again in Kent, and suddenly heard, that we had terrible floods, really big floods in Rockhampton, and our sports hall. First of all, can I use it as the evacuation centre? I said yes, of course. Then I got a phone call to say that the airport was flooded. And you perhaps remember back in those days, I had a little aeroplane. I used to fly around. And they told me that was going to go underwater. So, oh, God. So I got in the car. That was New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. So
2011.
2011. Got in the car at about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning and drove to Rockhampton and moved the plane to higher plan. But I went onto the campus, and the security guards, these are security people, you know, they're not the heads of security, they're just the guys that you normally see wandering around. And what they'd done, they had taken over the situation. They'd sorted out the sports hall. They'd got it all organised. They'd organised where these people that had, you know, weren't in their homes, where they could go and do their washing. They'd worked out ablutions and showers. They'd worked out where the pets were going to go, you know, and they were just running the thing. And I walked in, and the first thing they said was, "Oh, okay, over to you now, you know, that you're here to take it." And I said, "No, you're doing a fantastic job. Why would I want to take over the leadership of this thing?" You know, so what I said is, "Look, what do you want me to do?" What, you know, now, of course, because of my position at the university, I had more probably access to resources, more authority, more power. But in that situation, they were the leaders, and it was, what I will follow you. What do you want me to do? I can use all this resources, but you have to tell me how I do it. And that was kind of, that clicked. That really clicked. That fellowship, and you've got to be willing, if you're really into this, you've got to be willing to follow one of the security guards. You've got to be willing to, if a level A lecturer, associate lecturer comes up with a really good idea, you don't say, "Okay, stand back, I'm going to take this forward now." You don't say, you know, "Stand back, I'm going to get the PVC teaching and learning to drive this." You actually get behind them. And every time, you know, then it goes on and it gets public acclaim. You always give that acclaim. You always give that credit to that person. And the funny thing is, if you do that, you know, people feel they have to take that and say, "I did it," you know. But if you actually say, "No, it was, you know, Frida Smith that actually did it," you bask in reflected glory. You don't lose anything. But a lot of people just don't get that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I think. Yeah.
I love it. So anything else that you wanted to share?
I don't think so, unless there's anything you think I need to share, Tanya.
I can't think of anything except that I really wanted to say thank you for joining us.
I will say one more thing. I'll probably be here all night. The other thing I feel really important is about fun, you know, the element of fun in work. You know, one of, I think, our favourite sayings around the place is, "Look, we do serious work. This is serious stuff. You know, we're training people to be lawyers and engineers and doctors. This is serious stuff. We're doing research, you know, and we're running a $1 billion business. This is serious stuff, but let's not take ourselves too seriously." So very much into fun. That's a big thing of what I'm doing at CDU now. Just you know, so we have kids party again. You've been to the kids. So, you know, this year again, I had 250 kids sitting on my lap, giving them presents, or, you know, terrified toddlers coming up to Father Christmas.
Like mine.
I seem to remember yours.
Yes.
But the scariest thing, these 4-week-old babies, and people are passing them to you, and I'm thinking, you haven't seen me with a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, and you're giving me this 4-week-old baby to hold. So I think that element of fun, you know, it's, you know, these places can be really stuffy, but, you know, and it should be fun for everyone in them. Yeah. And I know, you know, some universities, it's not been a fun time over the last year or so, but, you know, I think humour and fun, even in those really tough times, helps. Now I will shut up, promise.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, the irony is that our brains learn so much better when we are having fun. So it makes absolute sense in a learning environment that there is a bit of enjoyment and a bit of fun as well as the serious stuff. And
I think it also, you know, you get much better loyalty. You know, it shows that the university cares. So, you know, you have a kids' party and those young families, you know, those young professional staff and academics, they kind of say, I am willing, this is a thank you from the university to my kids, because I've given up so much of their time to the university, and someone's bothered to thank them for that. And I think that message kind of gets out there.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about Christmas and all things fun, I will let you get back to starting your holiday, which must be soon.
I'm actually working this week, so I'm just going from one Zoom meeting to the other, and the normal 5 million
Zoom
5 million emails. Yeah. But yeah, so I drove over for the weekend. I drove here from Darwin, which was good fun. Look, and I'm very proud. The whole way, and I only got one infringement notice. So that's pretty good for me.
Well done. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being part of the podcast, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you today.
And great speaking to you, Tanya.
Thank you.